Hello, everybody. It is that time of the week again. Welcome to Anime Initiative, the anime and manga-centric segment of Comic Book Nation. Of course, you've heard me before. I'm Megan Peters, your host, along with my two friends and co-workers, Evan Valentine and Nick Valdez.
Hey, everybody.
Howdy, everybody.
Hello. Well, you know what? Another week, and guess what? More animes happened. Anime happens when you're least expecting it, you know? Every time we end a podcast, I'm like, man, I hope more news comes through. And you know what? The anime industry delivers for us. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. So today, we have a bunch of news, kind of just like a big kind of news breakdown. You know, the biggest things that have happened since we last spoke. We got a fairy tale update. I know, shocking. It's been a while. We have a Netflix One Piece update. Shocker beyond all shocks, Macross, the lovely old school mech anime, has found a streaming home. And again, of course, we're going to be touching on Dragon Ball Super. And then after our ad break, we're going to go deep. We're going to dive deep, peel back the layers of the anime industry. And we're going to talk about Isekai. We're going to look at Suicide Squad Isekai, the new anime that's going to be coming out this summer that blends the best of anime with DC Comics. And then we're just going to talk about why in the world Isekai is everywhere you look in the anime industry. So, buckle in. Are you guys ready?
Yeah,
super ready.
Well, let's just kind of start at the top of our rundown, because the first thing I want to talk about is Fairy Tail. And that should come as no surprise. Ask anybody who knows me. I was obsessed with Fairy Tail growing up. And no, we're not talking about traditional, Rumpelstiltskin's kind of fairy tales. We're talking about the anime. We're talking about Natsu Dragneel. We're talking about Lucy Heartfilia. We're talking about Hiro Mashima's Fairy Tail. So for those of you that don't know, the series ended a long time ago, and it spawned off with a sequel, Fairy Tail 100 Years Quest. Well, it's getting an anime, and we got our first trailer, which, as I say trailer loosely, right? It's really just kind of like a slideshow. But essentially, we learned that Fairy Tail is going to be returning to air in July. How are we feeling?
It sure is,
All right, so Nick is way less enthusiastic than I am.
No, I mean, it's like, as someone who was here, like, covering that, helping Megan cover that final season when it hit, I personally closed my book on Fairy Tail, and then Megan was like, "Hey, did you know there's a sequel?" And I'm like, "Excuse me?"
You went, what?
Yeah. Well, the end of the first series ends with Natsu and the others deciding to take on the titular 100 Years Quest, that the S-class ranking mission that no one has ever passed before. And now the sequel is actually showing what that mission looks like, which is something I didn't need. So I will say that straight out. I loved Fairy Tail when it was. And when it ended, it was sort of one of those go off into the distance kind of endings for me, where I'm, one of those, the adventures will continue, but we don't need to see them kind of endings. And now that we're here with the sequel that was announced like 3-4 years ago, and now the anime's finally coming, of course I will be seated. We'll be there. There's some big developments in the sequel that fans wanted to see in the original. So, I can't wait to actually talk about those and react to those when they happen. But outside of that, I'm just like, yeah.
What do you think, Evan?
I'm not as familiar with Fairy Tail in general.
Oh, well, you're about to get real familiar.
I'm going to be made very familiar.
You better. I have Fairy Tail flashcards. I'm going to ask you like when Zeref's birthday was.
That's one of our secrets here at Team Anime on Comicbook.com. We have flashcards that we review when it comes to all these series.
Evan, you got to catch up on a decade of anime. I'm sorry, Evan. That's just
let me throw that on the list. I did want to comment. I thought this was very funny because when I was kind of familiarizing myself before we started recording today, I was like, man, who's the studio who's covering Fairy Tail 100 Year Quest? And it's a returning studio that we talked about here on the podcast a couple of weeks ago. A good old JC Staff is covering this one. They will be returning as well with One Punch Man season 3 whenever that comes out. So we will see. I think you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Cloverworks had worked on the last episodes of Fairy Tail's original series, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
they
they
did
were
some
they were
assists.
involved in the final season. Yeah.
Yeah, they did some
Yes.
assists. There were some pretty big battle sequences, for that final season,
Mhm.
they wanted to flex a little bit. But yeah, so for 100 Years Quest, basically, for people who are familiar with the original Fairy Tale series, because like I don't know, when I first started watching Fairy Tale, I mean years and years and years ago, I was like, man, this is a little anime and no one's ever heard of it because I had never like seen a lot of conversation online. Only to then find out, it was this massive,
Yeah.
massive series
Mhm.
that Hiro Mashima, the creator of, Rave Master, had kind of moved into. And for people who don't know Fairy Tale, you might know Hiro Mashima because he's the creator of Eden Zero, which is, a very popular manga and, an anime that you can find on Netflix. So he's he's one of the hardest working artists in manga. He finishes a series like I don't even know, like goes like drink a glass of water and then immediately starts another
And
series.
Megan, not even that too. Like sometimes he starts one while he's ending another one. Like Eden
Yeah, he
Zero
doesn't
is it
stop.
yeah, Eden Zero is in its final arc, and like he already started a new one that's
Yeah.
already like a hundred, like 10 chapters in or something like that. It's wild. Like the dude just, I guess, just doesn't sleep or eat or
I
drink.
don't know. He's just on it because I will say this. So for Fairy Tale 100 Years Quest, Hiro Mashima is in charge of the story and the storyboards. But Atsuo Ueda is the artist that does the manga. And I mean, the manga has been going on for, years at this point, like 5 years or something like that. I mean, it has a lot. It has a lot of content to adapt. So for people who aren't familiar, basically this story, this sequel of Fairy Tale takes place in a different continent area that we're used to. And it's following Natsu, Lucy, and the gang as they are essentially going to this new continent, and they basically have to take on this super difficult S class event where they have to steal 5 like dragon gods essentially. Um, and in the manga, it's pretty sweet. There are definitely some very, I'll say, surprising and overdue reveals in the sequel that we all wanted from the main series, so we will be excited to talk about that. But yeah, Fairy Tale's happening. It's getting a sequel. If y'all didn't know, we're back, baby. That's what I
It
want to see.
sure is.
I know. For better or for worse, it's back. So yeah, so talking about things that are coming back, we can't go long on this podcast without talking about Demon Slayer. I mean, we're an anime podcast. What are we supposed to do?
Yeah.
So if you didn't realize, in the last 7 days, we got a brand new trailer for season 4 for Demon Slayer Kimetsu no Yaiba. Of course, we've talked about this on the show. This new season will be adapting, you know, oh my gosh, I forgot the name. What's the name of the
The
arc?
Hashira training arc. Yes.
Okay, that's why.
Hashira training.
Here's the reason why I forgot the name of the arc. It's because it's kind of boring.
Yeah, and it's also like 9 chapters in the original.
Yeah.
And just jumping in here real quick, the Swordsmith Village movie came out, and To the Hashira Training, and is the first episode of season 4. And in that first episode, it's like adapting 2 chapters plus a little bit of a third one that happens much later for like better flow. So that's already 2 out of like the arc. So I am curious as to how long this new one is, and especially because the release date's not till May 12th, which
Mhm.
means it's likely going to be a shorter episode order. Like
Yeah.
what do we think? Like maybe like 8 episodes? Maybe.
I mean, here's the thing. If they go more than 10, they're gonna have to include a filler episode. Like
Yeah.
a completely original filler, which again, an anime filler gets such a bad rap. I think depending on, how faithful the filler is to the original series and whether or not the creator has any say in it, it can work. It has to be short. The Hashira training, or unless they start dipping into, more stuff about, the Infinity Castle and kind of leading into the final arc, like, or the final act rather. I don't know. It has to be short because it comes out May 12th. That's when season 4 debuts. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. The pacing has got me concerned.
yeah, because as just as a bit of an explainer, the spring 2024 season officially kicks off in April. That's when we get all the new anime stuff, and usually that means either 12 or 13 episode runs for these seasons. So when we say all that, and when we say it's starting in May, we're already looking at a truncated order. So and that means, if Megan's right and they include a filler, which they kind of already do in the premiere, there's already a ton of it. There's a little bit of extra material. So we'll see. But then again, now is the time, because after this, it's, the final fights and people start dying, and, this is the time to learn about their characters.
I will say this though. So I mean, we've discussed this previously. If you've read Demon Slayer, the manga, I think you will more than likely agree with my sentiment that even the pacing of the manga is wonky around this point. The manga just hits like light speed, man. It just starts going.
Yeah.
And I know as I was reading it, as Demon Slayer was coming out, I kept thinking, for the creator, Kiyoharu Gotoche, I've just butchered that name. I'm so sorry. I haven't had coffee. I really wanted them to slow down. I wanted them to take a breath and like expand more content with the individual Hashira. I am number one Giyu Tomika stan, so like give me more of the water Hashira, give me more of Inosuke doing training and like crazy stunts. There's a bunch of stuff that I felt there was breathing room for in the manga that was never allowed. So if the anime wants to kind of give those points of breathing, I would be absolutely okay with that in terms of filler content. I know that might be a controversial opinion given how filler is viewed in the anime sphere. But man, the manga was just going so fast, and it didn't need to be going that fast that soon, in my opinion.
Yeah, and then it slows down at the worst possible time too. Like I
I
won't get into any
the
spoilers
pacing,
here,
man.
but it starts slowing down in the final battle, and the final battle goes real Frieza, and Namek blows up in 5 minutes, which is like
Frieza situation Dragon Ball.
So heads up, get ready for that.
Like UFO Table, the studio behind Demon Slayer, really has the opportunity to enhance the Hashira training arc, because when I knew the manga was going to be adapting that, I was like, man, this is going to be sick. It's going to be like 20 something chapters. We're going to get some really great character development and growth for not just the Hashira, but for, we got a lot of Tanjiro during the Swordsmith Village arc. I wanted more from Inosuke, and I wanted more from Zenitsu. We just didn't get it. Yeah. So I'm hoping, we already know we're having a truncated episode order just because season 4 release is on May 12th. But I hope maybe they take a little bit of time and give us some extras. And also, just on a personal note, I want so much of Tengen. Just give me all the sound Hashira and his bejeweled eye patch. So sick.
I think that like, first off, when it comes to like the swordsmith the swordsmith village arc that came before, I think the fact that this is bringing back Inosuke immediately puts it on a higher level, even just because I'm such a big Inosuke guy. I love Inosuke. I love Zenitsu.
I cannot believe there was an entire season without them, Evan. Like
it's crazy. Like, it's crazy. That was a detriment of the Swordsmith Village. I think that like another thing that just kind of when looking at the Swordsmith Village, I mean, it was and it kind of goes back to what Megan was saying, which is effectively like you need to give it a bit more time to breathe. I think the first season kind of did that perfectly in terms of setting up Tanjiro, his training, meeting the rest of the cast, spreading that out over a set, number of episodes, and kind of working from there. And to an extent, Mugen Train and I think Entertainment District Arc, they both did that really well. And then, Swordsmith Village was essentially just like a giant fight scene that was like, here's the Mist Hashira, here's the Love Hashira. They're gonna like immediately come in, and I think his name is Genya, the dude who with the
dude with the gun.
Yeah, the guy with the gun. Amazing design, amazing character. I wish that he had more time to kind of dive into his background. I know that we did get like one episode that kind of flashed back and showed his relationship to a member of the Hashira that turns out to be his brother, all that stuff. So to the Hashira training, like as Megan said, filler isn't necessarily a bad word. It just depends on whether or not it's done right. And I think that they could pull a rabbit out of their hat and maybe add some material here that would help kind of expand on this and
I think I
long.
can sum it up by saying, give us One Piece filler and don't give us Bleach filler.
Don't give us
Well,
Boruto filler.
I mean, that's a whole other conversation. That is a whole other
conversation. We'll have an episode dedicated to filler shortly, but that's where we are with Demon Slayer season 4.
Yeah.
So, speaking of another season that we're looking forward to, not of an anime, but of a live action adaptation. Obviously, the world fell in love with Netflix's One Piece adaptation last year. Season 2 has already been ordered. It was very quickly ordered, just given the insane amount of success that, season 1 had. Of course, everyone is wanting to know when in the world season 2 is happening. When is it going to go live? Well, we still don't know that. However, we do know that progress is now finally being made in terms of production on season 2. The main key point is that there are a lot of One Piece fans in Cape Town, and that is where One Piece is filmed by Netflix. And some set photos have surfaced online as of late that show the Going Merry is back on set. They sailed that puppy from wherever they were, and they brought the Going Merry back to the Cape Town studios where Netflix films One Piece. So
cool.
There's also not just one Going Merry, there's 2 of them. So, the only thing better than, one of them is 2 of them. So we do know that production on season 2 is imminent, which we love to see because, man, the live action adaptation, I'm so interested to see how season 2 is going to be done because it's so big. Right?
Yeah. Like the Alabasta saga, which is the next one up, has like tons of little mini arcs within it. And they're, speaking of content you could skip and kind of move around and stuff, the first season was kind of good at doing that in like picking and choosing what the best elements were. And there are some moments in the Alabasta saga that we can just straight up pluck right out. We can pluck out some uncharacteristic stuff for Luffy and Zoro in the I forget what the village is called, but it's that, it's where we meet the Baroque Works for the first time. Spoilers. But that little town arc, we can kind of pluck that right out and throw Baroque Works and something else and then kick off the Alabasta saga from there. But I am also curious, but where I'm sitting, they can take as long as they want with it if it means we get as good of a season as season 1. So I'm willing to wait.
Yeah, it's an interesting point to think about what because there is this, especially Alabasta, and like I think if this season was only focused on Alabasta, it would be a tough enough job to kind of take all the smaller sub arcs and kind of decide what you're going to do. But the fact that this will most likely also, the first episode will probably be Logetown. And then they'll have to go to Drum Island where they pick up Tony Chopper. And then they have to go to Alabasta because there are parts of Alabasta that I think, while not necessarily key to the overall story, I think they go a long way in terms of bolstering the characters of the Straw Hats. Like when Luffy and company, when they go to that tiny village in Alabasta where those ragtag mercs are like running it and asking for money and everything, as well as when they run into that that's sniper father who's trying to make a name for himself by kind of taking one of them out. So there's a lot of stuff that I'm not envious of whoever has to make the decision. I'm interested to see how Oda will kind of balance everything out working with the showrunners. And after the first season, I'm confident. I think they got the right balance for that.
Yeah, and it won't be like an 8-year wait that it was for the first season, right? Because they've already like the problem with like what took the first season so long was actually doing it. And now that they've done it already, I feel like at least the process is smoother. And hopefully there won't be any, worldwide pandemics going on that will halt this one.
Or strikes. Knock on wood right now. I need you to cancel that out.
Yeah, I mean, double pandemics, right? So, that's what I'm assuming, that this one won't take the 8 years. It'll take maybe 3, 4, maybe 5 would be pushing it. I will say that straight up. If we get the next season of Avatar before we get the next season of One Piece, I'm over it. But like take its time, but also don't take too much time. I don't know. I'm very
I mean, honestly, I'm gonna differ with you. I mean, I think it'll come out within the next 1 to 2 years. I think
okay.
I think they're gonna try to push it further. I mean, again, we have no understanding or information on what the season 2 episode order might look like, what kind of budget it's dealing with in the wake of season 1. But when you're looking at something with Alabasta, when you have major characters that are coming into the story, looking at Ace, looking at Tony, looking at Dr. Kureha, which I'm sure they're going to have to dedicate a large budget to Jamie Lee Curtis because she better be in One Piece season 2. She's begging for it at this point. That there's just so much to do, so much to see. So it's definitely, as I guess nerve-wracking it is to see how they're going to handle, Alabasta. I definitely have the confidence in them. And now that we know that the set for season 2, the ships are coming back in, actors Makinyu, who plays Zoro, and Taz Skylar, who plays Sanji, in the live action adaptation at various conventions, they've hinted that they will be back in South Africa filming in the latter half of this year. So, I mean, if filming is going to get started by this summer, I would be really surprised if we didn't have the show out by next year. But again, we'll see. We don't know. I'm just spitballing here. But I'm very excited. And we will see how it goes. But there's maybe one thing that I'm more excited about than One Piece. And that is maybe an anime you've not heard of. But Macross, the good old retro, really good mecha sci-fi anime, has finally found a streaming home in one cohesive place. For the most part, there is a caveat: 2 series will not be available, or a series and a movie will not be available. But Macross is going to be streaming on Disney Plus, which is wild to me.
Wow, Disney. Wow, they're really, I mean, first it was the Kadokawa deal, now it's Macross. Now it's like, ooh, they are really putting their wallets behind anime.
I know. Have either of you seen Macross, or are either of you familiar with the franchise?
I'm familiar with it, and I've seen an episode or 2 in passing. I think that it's so awesome to see that stuff like this is happening, because it does, aside from just places like Netflix or Disney Plus, making their own original anime content, seeing them kind of recognize what came before and bringing it back to a whole new audience. I think that for folks who are watching this live, you can see like the animation still holds up. It's like, yeah, it's maybe it's not like as clean as the modern day stuff, but like, it gets the job done, and the stories kind of resonate for decades following when they initially arrived. So like, I'm super excited. I know I'm gonna dive into this when it comes to Disney Plus, and I'm excited to see. I'm a fan of going back and kind of revisiting some of these older series.
Yeah, because Macross has been caught in this kind of licensing hiffle, and like because of that, like it's been very hard to watch, with distributors in English and multiple other languages and stuff like that. So getting it all in one place is huge. And Macross 2, it's not only like, it's a wild franchise in that it's not only like a big mech series, big science fiction series, it also kind of like influenced idol anime. Like it's kind of like why we have shows about idols. Like we have the idol Love Life Superstar and stuff like that. As you can see in the clip, as we're showing here on the stream, there are prominent characters who like sing and dance and kind of are idolized, and that kind of sparked that whole genre too. So it's really wild to actually get the history all in one place. This is huge.
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge deal. If you want to read more about the kind of licensing debacle that has kept Macross away from streaming and really any kind of cohesive distribution plan outside of Japan, we have plenty of coverage of that on Comicbook.com. But it is worth noting that, unfortunately, Super Dimensional Fortress Macross will not be included in this. It will only be streaming in Japan on Disney Plus, and that is the kind of Macross that most people know. That one is still caught in a licensing debacle. And then the movie Macross: Do You Remember Love is also going to be exclusively showing in Disney Plus Japan. But the rest of the titles will be available on Disney Plus, which in and of itself is a massive win for a series like this. It just really is so good because, I mean, we talk about the necessity of physical media. We talk about the necessity of, or the non-necessity of, streaming and digital media. Well, the problem is Macross is also just so hard to get on physical media in English just because of the licensing debacle. You can't get it here in America, or it is absurdly expensive. So to have this kind of ease of access is definitely a great, win for retro anime fans, I'll say. So
Yeah,
with that
absolutely.
said, we will move to our final topic, which of course is none other than Son Goku himself. Dragon Ball Super. We are on the cusp of a new chapter. I believe it's chapter 103, correct?
Yes.
Yes. So we're on the cusp of chapter 103, as we've discussed in a previous episode. Unfortunately, this chapter is, as far as we know, one of the final ones that series creator Akira Toriyama worked on prior to his passing. But the first drafts did go live of, the chapter. Dragon Ball Super tends to release a couple pages early of the first draft of a chapter just to tease what's on the way. And basically what it teased is that the superhero arc is officially ending with chapter 103. So the question obviously is now what comes next?
It's definitely I mean, it's great to see that. I think there's kind of always this dynamic of whether or not you should kind of dive into fan service when it comes to a lot of anime stuff. But so many fans have been wondering, hey, who's stronger between Gohan and Goku at this moment? So
Yeah.
getting kind of a definitive answer on that is super cool. I mean, it's good to see that and everything. I think that in terms of the obviously in the future we have no idea what's going to happen, but obviously the big hanging chad of Dragon Ball at the moment is Black Frieza. Frieza's ultimate transformation after hanging out in a hyperbolic time chamber, aka room of spirit and time, for the equivalent of 10 years, and being able to one-shot Goku and Vegeta in their ultimate forms. And so he's still out there. He's been out there for a little bit. I hope that they have and after all, we could use another tournament arc. So wrapping up, something with Frieza into some kind of tournament, that would be pretty cool, I think.
Yeah, because we still got to get to End of Z somehow. And I guess we can just wrap it up here and then be like, oh, okay, well, End of Z happens. But you can't have End of Z with Frieza still out there. So that's the thing is unfortunately, we do need to resolve that. Whether it's the next arc or whether we get a new arc, that's oh, here's another granola or somebody brand new that before Frieza comes back. And it's oh, okay. But we have to resolve that. I don't know. As someone who's oh, you can't give me Frieza as a god and not bring it back. You just can't do that to me.
Yeah. Basically, I mean, you two put it perfectly. We have this massive dangling, smoking gun in front of us with Black Frieza. We cannot resolve Dragon Ball Super at minimum until that has been addressed. So, in my, my hope, my best guess is that, this superhero arc is kind of where, maybe that will pay a nice kind of homage and a farewell to Toriyama. Again, we don't know how much content he and Toyotaro, the artist of Dragon Ball Super, were working on behind the scenes. Unfortunately, before his passing, he might have several arcs planned. There might be nothing. We really don't know at this point. It was announced this morning, though, that once chapter 103 of Dragon Ball Super is released later this month, it will be going on a break in April. So we will have a little bit of a break, and I guess we'll kind of come back and see what happens with Dragon Ball Super next. But yeah, it looks like the superhero arc for the manga, it's going to finally be done. It will finish up Goku versus Gohan. So my final question I need to ask you two for this segment: who's winning that battle?
I don't think we get
I
a winner.
You don't
Yeah,
think?
I-
Oh, interesting.
mm,
You want it to
Yeah,
be a tie?
No, well, I think it's the Dragon Ball cop out of like, it's going to be one of those happy endings where we don't really get to see who wins, and they're just going to kind of like, I don't know, be satisfied with what happens. It's the Goku Vegeta thing. Like, we didn't get a prominent Vegeta win until the superhero movie itself. So I think here we're getting that with Goku and Gohan. They're just kind of going to be like, we are both strong, and we're gonna have to.
Powerful. What do you
Yeah,
think,
and
Evan?
then like Beerus is gonna get hungry or something and stop the fight. You know what I mean? It's one of those.
I am hoping that we get a Gohan win here. I just want Gohan to be the strong. Like, in my heart of hearts, I want Piccolo to be the strongest Z fighter. I was hoping that Orange Piccolo would put him at the top of the leaderboard, but yeah, I'll take Gohan. I would like Gohan to kind of beat up his father for the many years that he was not there for him.
I have to say, I growing up as a kid watching Dragon Ball Z as a child, I had the biggest crush on Gohan. So like in every way I'm biased. In every way I'm biased. So I can't take an objective stance on this. I want Gohan to beat the ever-loving snot out of Goku. I think Nick, you're right. There's no way we're gonna get a definitive stance on this. They'll make like a cop out that like Gohan has the highest power level, but Goku has the better techniques. Like, it's gonna be something like that.
Yeah,
It's gonna be like ultimately it's gonna tie itself out. But those are our bets. So next time that we're having an episode, I guess we'll see who wins. See how this fight goes out. But yeah, Dragon Ball Super new chapter comes out, very shortly. It'll be on a break next month, and then we will see where the series goes from there. So now we got to pay for the show. We gotta make money in order to talk about anime with everybody. So we're gonna take a quick ad break, and then we're gonna be back to talk about all things Isekai and Suicide Squad. Welcome back to Anime Initiative, the anime focus segment of Comic Book Nation. We are back. We are here to dive into what is arguably the biggest kind of genre in anime and kind of its flagship series that's coming out in 2024. So, if you did not know, the Suicide Squad is coming to anime, which is nuts in my opinion, right?
Yeah.
So, Nick, do you want to break down what the show is?
Oh, yes. Awesome. So Suicide Squad Isekai, it's a brand new Suicide Squad based show where we get the group of DC Comics villains like Harley Quinn, Clayface, King Shark, Peacemaker, Deadshot, basically the ones you saw in, maybe not in the James Gunn one, but the one prior of that kind of lineup. And so they're going to be thrown into a whole new world, and that's the Isekai part of it. Isekai anime, we'll get into here in a bit, is basically means another world. And that is sort of what we'll see with this one. Is they're going to be on a mission where they're kind of they have to do something. I don't know what the something is yet. They've been playing very coy about this. They're thrown into like a world of like dragons and monsters and kingdoms and stuff like that. And they have to solve these things by Amanda Waller or their heads get blown off. Standard Suicide Squad stuff.
Yeah,
So
Suicide Squad.
I am excited. It's being produced by Wit Studio. It has a lot of like anime juggernauts in the voice cast. So I can't wait to see how this thing turns out. And it just looks great. Like if you look at the trailer we have here in the stream, just looks good. And that's kind of like one of the first things you worry about, right, with the Suicide Squad, because we've seen animated versions of them in before with like I think it was Arkham Asylum, like Hell to Pay. I think that was set in like the Arkham universe with the DC animated one. Then there was there's the Justice League Doom. Oh wait, no, not Doom. I'm getting it all mixed up here on the spot, but it looks good. This is what I'll say.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, Nick, you said it perfectly. We got a brand new trailer and poster. Suicide Squad Isekai was announced last summer, actually. And so it'll take about a year to come out. We know for sure that this series is coming out in July. And, promotions for it are going really hard. Warner Brothers Japan is presenting this in tandem with Wit Studios. And if you aren't familiar with Wit Studios, just by us saying the company's name, right now they're probably best known for, my personal favorite is Spy Family. They work on Spy Family with Cloverfield, but they also, they oversaw, parts of Vinland Saga. They did part of the Ancient Magnus Bride. What else have they done? Ranking of Kings.
Attack on Titan.
Attack on Titan.
The first 3 seasons, not like the fourth one. That's
season.
like
The first like season 1 and season 2 and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So I will just say this, we haven't been able to talk about Suicide Squad Isekai on this podcast yet. We are a show in its infancy. But it's nuts to me that Suicide Squad is getting an Isekai anime or an anime period. So before we can kind of really delve into how wild this is, we have Nick Valdez here, who is arguably the Isekai expert of Comicbook.com. I'm putting him on the spot. Put him on the spot right now. Tell me and tell all of our lovely listeners, what is Isekai?
Oh, okay, cool. I was hoping it wasn't going to be super hard or anything like that.
Oh no, I don't have my flashcards with me. I don't have my flashcards. It's not gonna be that hard.
Yeah. So Isekai once again basically means another world, and that is the name of this subgenre in which an anime character is thrown into another world for whatever reason. There have been multiple things in the past. They've either died and been reincarnated. A lot of the times, that's where the truck joke comes in. A lot of times they are hit by a truck and they wake up alive in another world as like babies, animals, vending machines, pigs, animals. And then now the Suicide Squad are doing the same thing because then there are gates that they can go through, which is the Suicide Squad version. They're just going through a portal. Sometimes they are summoned as the hero to this kingdom that's fighting a demon lord, and then whoever gets summoned finds out they have a secret power. Then there are ones that like Sword Art Online, which kind of count but kind of don't, because it's technically they are trapped within a video game and kind of need to survive that, and it's another world from their own, and that's basically what it means. Like, it's just anything where someone is taken and put into another world, and the other world really doesn't matter. It can be fantasy, it can be post-apocalyptic, it can be whatever the Suicide Squad's doing. It's just they're plucked from their world and thrown into another one. That is what Isekai is.
Yeah. So, like my favorite thing to point out is like technically Inuyasha is an Isekai.
Yeah.
Technically Kagome goes in that well and goes to another world. You can even stretch. I know we talked about Sword Art Online, but like even things like Digimon, they get taken to the digital world. Technically, if you're going down to technicalities here, Digimon is isekai, confirmed.
Yeah,
Uh,
Digimon, Escaflowne. We have shows coming out this spring that are isekai, like Konosuba. That time I got reincarnated as a slime. Of course, with isekai, the more we get them, the longer the titles get, which is probably the best part of it all.
I know Suicide Squad Isekai is a really short anime title for an isekai series. It's 3 words.
Yeah.
I'm surprised it's not like 30. But yeah, I mean, just like Nick said, isekai is so broad. And in the last, really 10 years or so, I would maybe edge it up to 15, but really in the last 10 years or so, isekai has just blown up. It is probably the predominant genre or kind of, story arc, like tool that you see in a narrative in anime. There are so many isekai stories out there. So Evan, I wanted to ask you, why do you think isekai anime series are becoming so popular? I mean, why are they still absolutely dominating the charts on Netflix, on Crunchyroll?
I think there's something to be said for like the power fantasy aspect of it, which is kind of like taking what is effectively more of a mundane character, because that is kind of a uniting thread amongst many of these isekai, is that you're starting off with a character who is, maybe there's stuff like Jobless Reincarnation, for example, where it is a guy who was just living in his parents' basement and he didn't have any life, but because of a traffic accident, he wakes up reborn as a kid who has the ability to use magic better than anyone else in the world at that point. And obviously Suicide Squad Isekai is a little different because these are super powered people that are being brought into a locale that's far different than the DC universe. And I would say like it's there's that aspect of it, but there's also the fact that the genre can be so many different things. It can be there's one, and maybe I'm butchering the name of it, but Reborn as a Vending Machine in Another World, or somebody had just dropped, or someone is just reborn as a vending machine. Like, that's so weird, and I haven't watched it myself, but like I'm gonna check it out at some point, just because of that concept alone.
Yeah, it's literally just that, Evan. Like, it's literally just a person in a vending machine person, that their whole power set in that show is just like getting a menu of things that they could vend out and help others with. And then they figure out they could turn into other kind of vending machines, like gumball machines and stuff. So I think
for me personally, one of my favorites is Uncle from Another World, which is just a amazing, hilarious series that is able to kind of take all the different aspects of isekai itself and kind of play on them in a way that like parodies them and anime in general. And I think that there's like a level of creativity and freedom in that isekai series in general are able to kind of tap into, and they're not in a certain structure. And isekai is kind of in the same like structure as like defining an action anime or defining like a romantic comedy or something like that. It's such a big thing that people can find something for themselves in that genre, and I think they do.
Yeah, totally. Like, Evan, Uncle from Another World is a great example because there have been so many isekai anime every year. Like, we're talking about Suicide Squad here, but just this spring, we're getting like 6, 7, 8 more. And that when Suicide Squad comes out, we're getting another like 10. And the thing about isekai now is that there are so many, the new ones kind of have to twist it in order to bring people in. And Uncle from Another World is a great example because it's an example of what happens after the isekai. It's what happens after he's the hero in this other world, comes back and finds out he has the magic. So like, it's told through flashbacks that we see, and it gets to play jokes on that. And it's the same thing with a vending machine. It's the same thing with like these other shows that kind of go for wacky premises in order to like stand out even more. And I think that's what's going to be the interesting trend. It isn't going to be, oh, here is another power fantasy. It's how can we flip the power fantasy? Of course, you'll still have those, but you'll have more shows like Konosuba of like someone coming to another world and then figuring out, hey, I don't get any of the gifts that I was promised in any of my isekai stories, and I'm here stuck with like a god that doesn't help me and stuff like that. Like, there's so many of those shows now that almost it's kind of like, I do wonder where the trend is going to go, if it means going back to just not wholesome isekai, but like straightforward isekai of like, are we going to go back to power fantasies because we've seen so many parodies? So I have no idea.
Yeah, the trend of isekai becoming self-aware has been fascinating in the anime industry because, you know, you've had so many of these twists and turns and, you know, these little niches. I mean, I think obviously, you know, speaking specifically to Suicide Squad Isekai, you know, based on what we've seen with the trailers, based on what, you know, us as comic book fans know about the Suicide Squad itself, they could not be more irreverent. So they're going to be kind of approaching this, you know, isekai genre. I'm sure as we're seeing them travel through this word, we're going to get a lot of fourth wall breaking, irreverent kind of twist on, you know, what the isekai story structure and tropes are. So I think it's definitely going to be that kind of tongue in cheek kind of situation, with its catch being the fact like, well, hey, these are Suicide Squad, you know, characters. This is, you know, that's an easy kind of niche in and of itself. You know, as isekai continues to grow, I mean, 5 years ago, I thought, you know, there's no way isekai can continue at, you know, its current trajectory in terms of popularity. And I mean, I lost that bet. I lost that bet real hard. It has only gotten even bigger. And so, I mean, I think, Evan, when you said that isekai is now almost as broad of a kind of genre essentially as romance. I mean, you look at, you know, for instance, the romance genre. I mean, you look at Nana, that could be that could not be more different than something like Kibi ni Todoke. Like it could not be more different from what those are, but they're both romance. You know, you look at isekai and it's starting to get that kind of flexibility essentially, which I'm excited to see. Because man, there's a period there in like the first like the early like 2010s, like late 2000s, like where all the isekai that was coming out was the exact same story, and I was so tired of it. So I really love to see the innovation that we're getting now. And to speak specifically on Suicide Squad, like they couldn't have picked, I feel, a better like comic book IP team to make that happen. Like Suicide Squad is nuts. What do you think, Evan?
Yeah, no, I totally agree, because I think that I think that like with anime fans in general, and like we've covered it a number of times for comic book, but there's always kind of a war between, not a war, but there's a perceived war between North American comic books and manga in general. And what we've seen in recent years is that as manga and anime becomes bigger in North America, we're seeing more unification between North American comic book properties and manga in Japan and anime in Japan. And so we've seen things like Deadpool Samurai, which became a huge seller that sees, you know, Wade Wilson teaming up with All Might from My Hero Academia. And you know, Megan, you're totally right when it comes to like, if you're going to take any team in DC or Marvel's roster, then like Suicide Squad is the best one, because it's just this team of anti-heroes / full-on villains who aren't afraid to just murder anyone in their path, and like dropping them into an isekai scenario just works so well. And I don't know about you guys, but I think Suicide Squad could use a win in 2024. And,
man,
you just brought up my next big point, which I feel like we could throw a grenade on, because you know we are the anime focused segment of Comic Nation, but you know we are Comicbook.com. Is this going to be the best Suicide Squad adaptation we've ever gotten to date?
Ever gotten? No, because
like beyond the movie.
James James Gunn's the Suicide Squad.
Beyond David Ayer's. Like, I'm not talking about the comics themselves.
Then yeah, I think so. Like, it has a good shot of it, because mostly just because it looks better than all the animated works that have featured the Suicide Squad in them. And although those DC movies have like some great moments, this one still looks like it's just going to edge it out just a bit. I mean, it really does depend though on the English dub, We haven't really gotten any
Yeah.
news on the English dub front and the English dub release, so I am curious to
Mhm.
see how that works out. And like I think it has a chance of succeeding in that regard. I really
Mhm.
do.
Mhm.
Now,
Get John Cena back as
oh my
Peacemaker, and
gosh,
then you'll.
if they can get okay, here's the thing though. John Cena has tweeted about anime so many times. He's in love with Korean culture and in Japanese, pop culture. I
Mhm.
think they have a pretty solid shot at getting John Cena in
Yeah.
for Peacemaker if they really wanted. Jury's out on everything else, but I guess we can find out. So now we've talked about Suicide Squad Isekai, we've talked about its adaptation. Here's the thing that I want to know, because we've talked about how broad isekai has grown and how flexible it can be. I would love to see a trend where we get, more of these licensing kind of IP collaborations where we bring pre-established characters into an isekai world. So
Mhm.
what other IPs do we as a collective team here need to see? Because my number one isekai is almost like a reverse isekai. I would love to see an anime that tackles the Marvel universe, but the joke
Mhm.
is that My Hero Academia is put into the anime universe of Marvel. That's what I
Ooh,
want.
that'd be
I like
great.
that idea. I would take that one step further and let's throw an isekai hero, right? Like base plate, has a sword, is the strongest person in their world, and suddenly thrown into like the Marvel universe. I think like yeah, that sounds fun.
So, like, you're
Especially
saying,
because
what if we throw Yamcha from Dragon Ball into the
yeah,
Marvel
yeah,
universe?
because that's the thing, right? Yamcha might be the weakest human in the Z Fighter roster, but the weakest human in the Z Fighter roster is the strongest human in like every other universe. So,
Oh,
Right,
yeah.
yeah, he's still gonna, I mean, I would love to see Yamcha versus Hawkeye, right?
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
isn't
Yamcha
that
would
the real thing we're
destroy
asking here?
him.
Could you
yeah, like
imagine how sick that would be if an anime studio was like, "All right, bet, let's do it." Yamcha versus Hawkeye, Yamcha versus Black Widow. Honestly, this is it. I think my new pitch is Yamcha in any world, right?
Yamcha versus the world, right? Yeah, I dig that. Yeah, I mostly because I like the idea of throwing an anime character into like a superhero world, and I'm
Mhm.
pretty sure that idea's been done. But like
Oh
straight
yeah.
up, like all the anime genre tropes, but like they also get all the anime powers, right? Like I don't know, like Shadow Sight and all the stuff that you would think with anime, like Super Saiyan and all that, but. Have them fight Superman or something.
Mhm.
My other big, and I mean, obviously this will never happen. And not that any of these pitches will ever happen that I'm creating, because the licensing complications that would go behind it would be staggering. But ever since I was a child, like a small 5, 6-year-old kid, I always wanted like a Pokemon Digimon crossover. I would give so much to have like a one-off special or miniseries that sucked like Pikachu or Pikachu and Ash, even though I know they're not the stars of the Pokemon anime anymore. I would kill to see them sucked into the digital world and just see the sheer confusion when these monsters start pulling out like guns and stuff.
Yeah, I was like, yo, Pikachu against War Greymon, please.
Could
Like,
you
oh my
imagine? Because in Pokemon physics and in the Pokemon universe rules, Pikachu wins. But in
right.
Digimon, that's not the
Not
case.
not so much.
Like
Yeah.
there's a lot of those. I
And,
just
and Digimon can speak. Like Digimon have like an actual language that they speak to people. Whether it's
uh-huh.
English, Japanese,
Mhm.
whatever your dub is. Like Ash isn't talking. Oh, there we go. Right? What if Ash goes to this other world and then Pikachu starts talking? Like that's the thing.
Yeah,
Oh,
but
that'd
it's
be
again, it's
weird.
Danny DeVito's voice, right?
Yeah,
Danny DeVito's voicing Pikachu in this isekai swap. That has to
dig
be the
it,
case.
dig it. Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So I know
Ash isn't doing
obviously
anything, right?
everybody
Like,
I know obviously all of the anime industry executives, both, across the world are listening to these pitches right now. Please make them happen. I will watch. I will stand from day one. That's an easy sell for me. But yeah, I mean, just with how big Isekai is coming, I think that this is not the last time we will see a big established group or an IP like Suicide Squad coming into the isekai realm and kind of playing with those kind of tropes.
Mhm.
So
I
I
dig
think
it.
that's where we're
Dig it.
at. Do you agree? Nick, I have to have your agreement because you're the isekai expert.
No, I totally agree. Like I think that's all it is. I'm just curious as to how it's going to play out. I'm curious if this is a one-off deal, if this is like just this one season story and then it ends and then that'll be it. I'm hoping like you established earlier, Megan, like I kind of hope this is just the start of like more of a partnership between Warner Brothers Japan and Wit Studio and all this stuff, making it all happen. Like, because I want to see more DC anime. Like we've gotten Batman Ninja and stuff in the past, and we've gotten DC Comics manga. So and then we have shows like My Adventures with Superman that show that Superman does work in an anime style. So like I kind of want more of this. I hope we all watch it and love it and be like, yeah, give us the next one, whatever it turns out to be.
All right. And so now then, I guess after Suicide Squad Isekai comes out and is a hit, I guess the ball's in Marvel's court. Give us Deadpool Samurai. Give us that anime adaptation, you cowards.
I think that would do it. I think that would do it.
I mean,
yeah.
Deadpool is the perfect. I mean, he is an anime character. Of all of the Marvel,
and that manga is so good. Give us that anime day one watch. So that is kind of our isekai explanation. Again, if you need more hard, groundbreaking coverage on all things isekai, Comic Book has it here. We have Nick Valdez here. He is our resident expert. Evan and myself are just his loyal lieges as we try to keep up with his understanding of the isekai multiverse. So that's where we're at. But unfortunately, it's that time of the show. Time to wrap things up. Thank you for listening today. If you want all of the geek news, obviously Comic Book Nation has you covered. We just covered some of the, latest and breaking Star Wars stuff with the Acolyte trailer that just went live. If you want to talk about comics, we've got the pull list. If you want to talk about gaming, we have Quick Save. We got everything you need in terms of podcasts, and you can find those podcasts wherever you get your feed from. So if you want to find us here at Anime Nation to continue the conversation, you can find me on socials at Megan Peters CB. Nick, where can they find you?
At Valdezology on all the socials.
And you, Evan?
At EV Comedy on all them socials.
Awesome. Well, hit us up. Talk to us about all things Suicide Squad. Again, if you want more coverage, please head over to Comic Book Anime. We have everything you need and more to fill your little heart with all the otaku information you need. So until next week, we'll catch you later.
See you guys.